The waiter placed the check on our table like it was a landmine. We both stared at it in silence. She didn't reach for it. She never did. I covered it with my hand, more out of habit than generosity. Her wine glass was still half full. So was mine. The pasta was cold, untouched. We hadn't spoken in at least 10 minutes. The air between us felt like static, something about to crack or spark or explode. Then she set her fork down. Neatly. Slowly. She looked up at me and just blinked. You were my biggest mistake in my youth. The restaurant didn't go silent like in the movies. A baby was still crying at the booth behind us. Someone coughed. A couple toasted near the window. Life kept moving. But my entire world, my world, froze right there between the candles and the crumbs. I thought she'd follow it with a laugh. Or a just kidding. She didn't. She just stared at me, like she'd finally scratched an itch. Like she'd wanted to say it for years. I didn't ask why. I didn't cry. I didn't plead for an explanation. I pushed the check toward her side of the table and said, calm as ice, "Then I'll fix that now." She flinched. It was small, a twitch in her eyebrow, a shift in her breath, but it was there. The first crack. I stood up, pulled out my wallet, tossed down 100. I didn't look at her when I turned away. I didn't wait for her to follow. The door chimed when I pushed it open, and the cold air outside slapped me hard, like reality making sure I was awake. The night wasn't over. Not even close. By the time I got to the car, I had already made 3 decisions I couldn't undo. By morning, she would be locked out of more than just our home. And in exactly 72 hours, the woman who once said she couldn't breathe without me would learn what real suffocation felt like. I didn't go home. That's the first thing you need to know. I drove past our building twice, just watching. Her car was still there. Lights off. Everything still. I don't even know what I was looking for. Maybe hoping to catch her in some kind of lie. Something visual. Something concrete. As if her words at dinner hadn't already been a clean stab to the chest. But deep down, I already knew. That sentence wasn't just spontaneous cruelty. It was strategy. A slow drip poison. She'd been practicing it in her head for weeks, maybe months, waiting for the moment she felt untouchable enough to deliver it without blinking. What she didn't realize is that I had stopped blinking too. I ended up at a 24-hour diner. One of those sad places with greasy menus and bathrooms that haven't seen bleach since 1998. I sat in the corner booth with a black coffee and nothing else. No appetite. Just thoughts. A mess of them. If someone had recorded my internal monologue, they'd have had enough whining to make a full album. Every track titled, "How Did I Let It Get This Bad?" I wasn't perfect. God, no. I worked too much. I forgot little things. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. But I wasn't unfaithful. I didn't lie. I loved her hard. I gave her my best years. And now she was sitting across from me in that overpriced restaurant, telling me she regretted it all like it was nothing more than a youthful tattoo she'd grown embarrassed of. By the time I left the diner, it was almost 3 a.m., and something in me had changed. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to give her the drama she clearly wanted. I was going to do what I had quietly been preparing for without even realizing it. I was going to extract myself from the wreckage, not with fire, but with silence. With cold, surgical precision. When I got home, I didn't slam the door. I didn't even make a sound. I just walked to the bedroom, and there she was, pretending to sleep. Her breathing was too controlled. She wasn't under the blanket. Her back was to me, but her ears were wide open. I could feel it, and that made me smile, just slightly. If she was waiting for me to explode, she was in for a long, long night. Instead, I went straight to the closet. I took out the small duffel I always kept half-packed for business trips. Quietly. I didn't take everything. Just the essentials. Passport. External drive. Cash. The second phone I used for travel bookings. And the envelope I kept hidden behind the insulation in the bottom drawer. The one with the bank documents she never knew existed. I wasn't stupid. I'd seen friends go through brutal divorces. I always said I'd be different. That I'd never be caught blindsided. So over the past few years, I quietly started building a firewall. Separate savings. A shell company. All above board legally, but discreet enough to disappear into if needed. I didn't think I'd need it because of her. But here we were. I left her a note. Short. Simple. Folded once, placed gently on the kitchen counter. You were right. I fixed it. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. Then I walked out. But that was just the first move. In the next 72 hours, She would lose the things she valued more than love, more than marriage, more than me. Things she never thought I had the power to touch. Things she thought I was too weak, too soft, to even notice. She had no idea I wasn't playing her game anymore. I was building a new board, and the first piece had just moved. By the time she opened her eyes the next morning, I was already miles ahead, not just in distance, but in thought. I wasn't hiding in a motel or crashing on a friend's couch. I had gone somewhere she wouldn't think to look, somewhere outside the script of her little betrayal drama, because I knew her well enough to predict the first 3 moves she'd make. And she did not disappoint. At exactly 7:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not the one I left behind, the burner. The one tied to nothing. No name. No history. Just one number programmed into it. Hers. I watched it vibrate, slow and pathetic, like a ghost trying to whisper from the other side. Missed call. Missed call. Missed call. Then a text. Where are you? I didn't reply. I wanted her to stew. I wanted the silence to grow thick enough that it echoed in her own chest. Because for once, I wasn't going to explain myself. No more late-night talks. No more emotional cleanup after her messes. I had given her years of gentle forgiveness, and she'd responded by lighting it all on fire. That morning, while she paced our apartment in confusion and growing panic, I was already sitting across from someone she never imagined I'd talk to. Our accountant. Well, my accountant now. The same one she used to ignore, the one she said talked too slow, and had a forgettable face. That man. He was now my closest ally. Together, we finalized the transfer of our joint account. What remained of it, anyway. Turns out she'd been siphoning funds in small amounts to a side account under the name of her event planning business, which was just a fake LLC set up for Greg, her fake therapist, and very real side piece. She thought I'd never notice. She thought I'd never look. But I had the paper trail, and now I had everything I needed to take back what was mine, quietly, legally, and with no opportunity for her to cry victim. She could scream all she wanted, but the truth was already working against her. At 11:47 a.m., she called again, then from her work phone, then from her sister's phone. By noon, she was spiraling. By 1:30 p.m., she was at my office, or, more accurately, outside of it. I watched from the cameras as she stood in the lobby, makeup perfect, fake tears locked and loaded. She didn't know I hadn't worked there in over a week. I'd taken a sabbatical. Quiet. Unannounced. Just one more step ahead of her. She left me 14 voicemails that day. Each one a different version of herself. Confused, hurt, angry, apologetic, manipulative. The full catalog of emotional bait. She was used to me biting. Used to me caving. This time I didn't. Because while she was circling the drain, I was enacting the next part of the plan, the part that would strike her where it hurt most. I contacted the board of the nonprofit she volunteered for, the one where she'd been pushing for a leadership role. I sent them a very carefully worded packet, not slander, not accusations, just documents, screenshots, bank transfers, dates, enough to raise questions, enough to make them take a step back. By the time the sun went down, her phone calls had stopped. No more texts. No more voicemails. But I wasn't stupid enough to believe she'd given up. No, she was just regrouping. What she didn't know was that while she was calculating her next move, I had one more revelation left to detonate. One that would rip open the illusion she'd built around herself and expose her not just as a liar, but as something far worse. It was the next morning when things really started unraveling for her. Not with a bang, but with a soft, suffocating collapse. I stayed off the grid, but I was watching, listening, pulling strings from the shadows while she blindly searched for a clue, for control, for the version of me who would always eventually come crawling back. But that man was gone. By 8:30 a.m., she had messaged 3 of our mutual friends, playing confused, asking if they'd heard from me, saying things like, "We had a silly argument, and he's just being dramatic again." As if erasing someone from your life over ravioli and red wine was just a lover's quarrel. As if telling your husband of 8 years that he was your biggest mistake was a quirky Tuesday mood swing. But the real shift happened at 9:12 a.m. when she showed up at her job, or, should I say, tried to. Security stopped her at the elevator. They had received a suspicious activity report involving misuse of her corporate card. Funny how that works. I didn't report anything. but I may have anonymously submitted a file showing several charges billed to the company under false project names, which just so happened to match dates and hotels from the romantic weekend getaways she took with Greg. They didn't fire her. Not yet. But they froze her badge, escorted her out, launched a full internal audit. She told herself it was just a misunderstanding. That's how I knew I was winning. But I wasn't done. Around noon, I made a phone call I'd been avoiding for months, to a woman named Carly. Sweet, soft-spoken, and heartbreakingly naive. Greg's wife. Or soon-to-be ex-wife, now. I didn't call to be cruel. I called because she deserved to know. I called because if anyone had the right to see what I had seen, the photos, the messages, the hotel receipts, the voicemail of my wife whispering things into Greg's ear that still make my stomach turn, it was her. Carly cried. Then she went quiet. Then she thanked me. That was it. One call. One ripple. By 3:45 p.m., Greg's social media accounts were wiped. By 4:30, my wife had posted some vague quote about not all storms being visible and turned off her comments. And by 6 p.m., she was in full meltdown mode. She texted me, "Can we please talk? I need to explain." I didn't respond. Then, I didn't mean it that way. Still nothing. Finally, "You're being cruel now." And there it was, the pivot. From regret to blame. From guilt to rage. That was always her fallback. If she couldn't pull me back with fake softness, she'd push with venom. But I wasn't on that seesaw anymore. I wasn't coming back. I was at my lawyer's office now. Not for revenge. Not for a messy court battle. Just to make it clean. Efficient. Quiet. Everything she thought she controlled, I was draining it away piece by piece. And she still didn't know the most important truth of all. The one I had kept buried until I knew it would hurt the most. A truth I planned to deliver in person. Soon. And when I did, she would understand that this wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't about jealousy or anger or ego. This was me, finally listening to the part of myself she spent years silencing. And it was about to speak louder than she ever expected. By the third day, her panic turned into something quieter. Desperation dressed in politeness. The voicemails got softer. The texts got longer. Every message read like a monologue she practiced in the mirror. "I never said you were a mistake. Not really. I just meant we grew apart. Let's talk this through, please. You owe me that much." What she didn't understand, or maybe refused to, was that I wasn't staying quiet to be dramatic. I was staying quiet because I had nothing left to say. Because sometimes silence isn't a weapon, it's a verdict. And yet, there was still one card I hadn't played. One piece of the puzzle I hadn't revealed to her. Something I'd been keeping in my pocket for months. Because if I had said it too soon, she would have twisted it. Claimed I was being paranoid or insecure. But now, in the wake of everything she destroyed, it finally had weight. She didn't know that I already knew about the pregnancy. Not hers. Carly's. Greg's wife. 2 months ago, before all this exploded, I got a message on Facebook from a burner account. No profile photo, no name. Just one sentence. "She's not the only one he's been lying to." Attached was a sonogram. I didn't respond. But I looked. I looked hard. At first, I didn't understand why anyone would send that to me. Then I put it together, the timeline. The weekends Greg said he was on corporate retreats. The name of the OBGYN clinic in the corner of the photo. I even recognized the beige sweater in the reflection of the glass. The one my wife used to wear when she stayed at her sister's. Or so she claimed. I hired someone. Not a hacker. Not a thug. Just a quiet guy with good instincts and a camera. Within a week, he had enough footage to make me sick to my stomach. Greg wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was cheating on his mistress. My wife was the other woman. Carly had no idea. Until I told her. So now, while my wife sent me those long, self-pitying messages, trying to play the wounded spouse, hoping I'd come home and pretend we could put this puzzle back together, she had no clue that Carly was about to destroy Greg in court. She didn't know that Carly had forwarded the photos, the texts, the evidence. She didn't know that I had already slipped a copy of it all into a padded envelope, and I was going to hand-deliver it. Not to hurt her, not to embarrass her, but to finally let her see what it feels like to stand in a room with the truth and have no place left to run. She wanted to control the narrative, to be the victim, to say I overreacted. But soon, she'd be face to face with the one thing she spent her entire marriage avoiding. Accountability. She opened the door in leggings and a hoodie, like we hadn't just torn our entire lives apart over the past 72 hours. Her hair was up, her eyes puffy, and there was a flicker of relief in her expression, like maybe I had come to talk things out, to be the good man she could manipulate back into place. I could almost see the thoughts behind her eyes before she even said a word. Curtis, thank God. She said it like I was the one who disappeared, like she was the victim of abandonment. I didn't step inside. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, studied her. The fake concern on her face, the slight tremble in her lip that used to fool me. I realized then that she had used that same expression the night I proposed. And now it just looked like bad acting. I'm so sorry for what I said, she started. I didn't mean it. I was upset. I wasn't thinking. It just came out wrong. She reached out, but I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I let her hand hang in the air between us. Then I held up the envelope. Her smile faltered. What's that? Still, I said nothing. Just handed it to her like I was returning something she'd left behind. She opened it slowly. I watched her face change with every page. First confusion, then a twitch of panic, then fear. Real, heavy, sinking fear. It was all there. Copies of the texts between her and Greg. Screenshots of the money transfers. Photos of them entering hotels together. And at the very bottom, 2 printed sonogram images. One with Greg's name in the patient emergency contact field. The other one with a timestamp matching the exact weekend she told me she was helping her sister recover from dental surgery. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She gripped the envelope tighter, like if she squeezed it hard enough, the truth inside would crumble. I know everything, I said. I've known for a while. She tried to speak. This isn't what it looks like. Stop. One word. Firm. Flat. Enough to cut her off mid-lie. I'm not here for an apology, I said. I'm not here for closure. I'm here because you don't get to rewrite this story. Not this time. Not again. She looked like she was going to cry, but I wasn't moved. I'd seen real tears before. These weren't it. These were the ones you squeeze out when you realize the house of cards you built is finally collapsing in front of someone who isn't going to pick them up for you anymore. I already filed, I added. Lawyer has everything. She went still. Curtis, you don't have to do this. We can fix this. We? There is no we anymore. You chose someone else. Over and over and over. You didn't just hurt me. You disrespected me. You made me feel small. And now, you're shocked that I walked away from it? Tears finally broke down her cheeks. You were the one who said I was your biggest mistake, I said quietly. But the real mistake was staying long enough for you to believe it. I turned around. No yelling. No drama. Just a door closing behind me that would stay closed for good. She didn't follow. Not this time. Because there was nothing left to chase. She didn't text that night. Didn't call. Didn't show up anywhere. But I knew she would eventually. People like her always do. Not because they miss you, but because they miss the control. The routine. The comfort of knowing they could shatter you and still find you sweeping up the glass. But that version of me, he was gone. I didn't go back to our apartment. My attorney had already arranged a property freeze and initiated the early stages of division. She hadn't even had time to prepare for that yet. And I made sure she'd be the last one to find out. No warning. Just a letter from the firm, landing on her doorstep like a final nail. I spent that evening somewhere I never thought I would, at a beachside motel outside the city. Nothing fancy, just enough space to be quiet, to think, to breathe without feeling like every breath had to be earned or justified. It's strange, the little things you notice once the noise stops. Like how heavy silence used to feel in our apartment, compared to how peaceful it felt now. How I used to dread being alone, and now I clung to it like a lifeline. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls and 3 voicemails. All from her. She had switched tones again. Curtis, please. I messed up. I know I did. I've been confused and stupid, but I never stopped loving you. I don't even know if the baby is his, okay? Can we just talk about this? This is so unlike you. You're not cold like this. Please don't become him. That last one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so bitterly ironic. Don't become him? The man she traded me in for? The one who knocked up 2 women while playing therapist in a button-down shirt and fake vulnerability? No, I wasn't becoming him. I was becoming me again. The version of myself I'd buried under compromise, silence, and self-blame. By noon, her sister called. She didn't say much, just that Valerie hadn't left the apartment. That she wasn't eating. that she was spiraling, that maybe, just maybe, I should talk to her for closure. Closure? That word has been weaponized by people who don't want to accept consequences. The truth is, some people don't deserve closure. They deserve the echo of their decisions, bouncing off the walls of their empty life. Still, part of me wondered, was she really falling apart? Or was it another performance? I didn't answer her calls, but I opened her latest text. It just said, "I can't sleep. I see your face every time I close my eyes." And for the first time since all this began, I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. It was the most peaceful nothing I've ever known. Because while she was drowning in the storm she created, I was already somewhere new, both physically and mentally. And she finally understood something I had quietly decided that night at the restaurant. You can call someone a mistake, but sometimes the mistake gets up, walks away, and never gives you the chance to correct it. It's strange how quickly the world moves on when you finally let go of the weight you were never meant to carry. The morning after her last message, the one where she claimed she couldn't sleep without seeing my face, I deleted it without reading the rest. Not out of cruelty, not out of bitterness, but because it didn't matter anymore. Her words couldn't reach me now. I had crossed a threshold, one she never imagined I was strong enough to reach. I didn't disappear, not in the dramatic way she probably tells people now. I simply stepped into the version of life she thought I was too weak to create without her. The divorce moved faster than expected. She didn't fight much. Maybe because she knew she'd lose more than just assets if it went to court. Maybe because by then, even she was too tired to keep pretending. Either way, it was clean. Efficient. No fireworks, no screaming matches, no dramatic scenes in courtrooms. She tried to write me a letter. I didn't open it. I mailed it back. She sent a friend to ask if I'd be open to one last conversation. Not to get back together, just to understand what went wrong. But she already knew. She said it herself over dinner, didn't she? I was her biggest mistake. And I'd fixed that mistake. In the months that followed, I changed almost everything. I sold the apartment. Left the city. I took a consulting job across the country. Nothing flashy, but enough to give me space, purpose, freedom. The kind of freedom you don't notice you've lost until someone gives you back your voice and you finally hear it again. Funny enough, I didn't expect to meet anyone new. That wasn't the goal. I wasn't looking to replace her. I just wanted to reclaim myself. But one morning, sitting at a local bookstore cafe with a bad muffin and a better book, someone sat across from me by mistake. Literally, wrong table, wrong order. Her name was Delaney. Soft voice, sharp eyes, honest smile. She laughed when I corrected her seat choice. I laughed too, probably for the first time in months where it didn't feel forced. We talked. Then again the next week. Then again after that. She didn't know my past. She didn't ask for it. She didn't demand I bleed out old pain to prove I'd moved on. She just existed with grace, and for the first time, I felt like I didn't have to shrink myself to be worth loving. It wasn't fireworks. It was peace. And that's what makes this the happy ending. Not because I found someone new, but because I finally found myself. As for Valerie, I saw her once, by accident. Months later, at an airport, of all places. She didn't see me, or maybe she did, and just didn't recognize me. I looked different, not in the physical sense, but in the way people do when they've finally stopped begging to be seen and started living on their own terms. She looked tired, distant, still searching for something to blame. I walked past without hesitation. No anger, no hate, no sadness, just freedom, and it felt like the final page to a book I never want to reopen.